Privilege and honor to welcome all of you to this international conference on globalization in India and United States of America, law, governance and business, jointly organized by OP Jindal Global University and Yale University. As the Vice Chancellor of OP Jindal Global University, I consider it my privilege to indeed welcome all of you, including the distinguished speakers on the dais, our Honorable Union Minister of Law and Justice, Dr. Veerappa Moily, Minister of State for Corporate Affairs, Mr. Salman Khurshid, the President of Yale University, Professor Richard Levin, of course our Chancellor, Mr. Naveen Jindal, and Professor Peter Schuck, Professor of Law at Yale Law School, who is also a member of the governing body of the university, our Registrar, Mr. Raman Shah, our Pro-Vice Chancellor, Professor Srivastava, and Dr. Sani, who unfortunately is not able to be here, but should be able to join us soon. Before we begin the substantive part of this proceedings, I just want to make a quick announcement that the Honorable Chief Minister of Haryana, Mr. Bhupinder Singh Hooda, is on his way and is slightly delayed and has conveyed his apologies, but he should be here soon. I would like to begin by essentially giving a brief historical overview of this university and how we came through where we are today and what we intend to do in the years to come. OP Jindal Global University, the vision of this university is to develop a multi-faculty, multidisciplinary university with 4 schools as the first phase of its development. We have a law school up and running with around 240 students. We are in the second year of our Jindal Global Law School. We have a business school, a Jindal Global Business School up and running with nearly 50 students in the first batch of business school who joined us in August. We have just established the 3rd school, the Jindal School of International Affairs, which will begin its first academic session in August 2011 with a unique program called the MA in Diplomacy, Law and Business, which is the postgraduate degree program integrating the study of diplomacy, including international relations, with international law and international business. But before we do that, which is to give you a brief overview of how we came to where we are, it's important we have the story that created us, the story that brought us all together here. Some years back, approximately in 2006, I was introduced by Mr. H.R. Bharadwaj, the then Law Minister, to Mr. Naveen Jindal, and it was way back in November 2006, and that was my first meeting with Naveen, and I had not known of him. I Googled him like all of us and found out that he's a steel tycoon and a billionaire and a parliamentarian and a shooter and has polo teams and did his MBA from Texas and does other million things, including working in his constituency, an elected member of parliament, a multifaceted personality. And I just met him, and we don't get to meet billionaires often, so I got to meet him in November 2006, spent nearly 10 to 15 minutes talking about the vision of the university. And in my first meeting with him, he heard me and said, you know, Raj, this is all very good, but you know, I'm into steel and power business, and this is quite a substantial investment to create a university. So, you know, we'll talk, but keep up the good work. And after that, I spent almost 1 year, the whole of 2007, we talked and talked and talked a lot. He shared the vision of OP Jindal Global University. I talked to him about what John Harvard did to create Harvard University, what Yale did to create Yale University, what James Stanford did to create Stanford University, what is the importance of higher education, and he was extremely appreciative and was constantly asking several questions. That was a huge learning experience for myself, including my own views about higher education. And it's important to put that in perspective because, for a variety of reasons, there is clearly a crisis in higher education. And Naveen was appreciative of that crisis that prevailed in higher education, largely due to the fact that our public institutions have not been able to fulfill the kind of demands and expectations both society and knowledge economy expects it to achieve, and also because of the fact that the best and the brightest of Indian graduates are no longer considering academia as a career option. So increasingly you have a number of universities being established in India with relatively mediocre faculty who are ready to teach. And this is not only in, say, law or business, but also across disciplines. So when we were envisaging the OP Jindal Global University, one of the core aspects of the vision of OP Jindal Global University was to create a research-intensive university whereby we are able to attract faculty from both India and abroad, and also to bring them to create a research-intensive environment to produce scholarship, to engage in research, and to contribute towards promoting excellence in teaching, research, and institution building. Along the way, we obtain the support of number of people, but what is most important for the perspective of all of us here and all of you, is to take the message that the philanthropic initiative of Mr. Naveen Jindal is quite extraordinary and unprecedented in the history of contemporary philanthropy in India. There have been some examples in the past. The Tatas have done quite a few initiatives in the past, but in more recent times, there is not even a single example of such substantial amount of corporate philanthropy towards higher education, and that's quite extraordinary. And it is also very important that as a part of the discussions, there were three things which was very critical for our institution building, and our Chancellor has been committed to that. First was, of course, the commitment to put the money, which he did, and that's why you have a campus, you have a vibrant environment, and what you see here has all taken place in a span of 6 to 9 months, the first phase, and then 1 year, the entire campus up and running. The second aspect that we discussed was to create a non-profit private university, and that's the vision of Harvard, Yale, NYU, Stanford. Unfortunately, a number of higher education initiatives in India have not been in that context. So while when India liberalized in 90s, as much as private investment in higher education came, none of this actually led to increasing academic standards, because most of these private initiatives were essentially profit-making and commercial and mediocre endeavor. So to that extent, to have a non-profit philanthropic initiative in a private context is indeed extraordinary and unprecedented. And the third aspect, which our Chancellor has been absolutely wedded to and committed to, is the question of academic freedom, functional independence, and institutional autonomy. He's obviously, the entire university is created with a view to advance knowledge as well as promote excellence, and this is possible only if the institution has the necessary academic freedom to ensure that academic standards are maintained and the governance aspect of the institution is kept independent of all other academic aspects. So be it the admissions process, the faculty recruitment, and all other aspects of institution building within the university has been continuously, independence has been maintained, and that's one of the hallmarks of a great or a good university. I would also like to add that as we proceeded forward with the institution building, we got the legislation passed as early as January 2009. I must compliment and congratulate the support and the encouragement that we received from the government of Haryana, the Chief Minister of Haryana, Mr. Bhupinder Singh Hooda, and the entire administration in Haryana, including several ministers, legislators, as well as the bureaucrats in the education department and other departments in the state of Haryana have been continuously supportive of our creation. I would also like to add that the Bar Council of India, which is a regulatory body which oversees legal education and legal profession in India, had given the necessary approvals so that we can begin the first school, the law school. So in January 2009, after we got the legislation, we began the process of construction of campus as well as faculty recruitment and student admissions process. In a span of 6 months, we completed all of this, and we got the first batch of students joining us on campus on 30th September 2009. The reason this is very special is that today, as a university, we are joining hands with Yale University, which was established in 1701, and we are 1 year and 1 month old, and Yale is over 300 years old. We are fortunate for the leadership and indeed the vision of the President of Yale University, President Richard Levin, for his commitment to India and indeed his vision to develop close collaborations with a number of institutions. You might have already got the news that Yale is establishing some initiatives in the IIT Kanpur as well as IIM Kozhikode. As a part of this larger process of Yale to build relationship as well as institutional collaborations in India, Yale is looking at strengthening different ties. I would like to quote a few lines from the speech of President Richard Levin when he launched the Yale India initiative a few years back, and I quote, "Yale commits itself to the goal that India will have a permanent and prominent place in the teaching, scholarship, and life of the institution. Decades from now, as India continues its economic, political, and social ascendancy, the commitments that Yale has made today will ensure that our students and faculty have a richer and deeper understanding of India and will contribute to strengthening the relationship between the world's two largest democracies, unquote. Now, the process of engaging and establishing this relationship with Yale needs to be put in the context of our friendship and indeed our strong collaborator with Yale many years even before we conceived the university, that was Professor Peter Schuck. Professor Peter Schuck is a professor at Yale Law School, has been a visiting professor for nearly 4 months and taught the first batch of Jindal students last year. He sits in our governing body, but more importantly, Peter Schuck is somebody who I had the opportunity to discuss some of these ideas way back in 2000 in New York when he was at NYU, and those several discussions with Peter over the last 10 years in the process of understanding the higher education policy in the US and how it relates to India, and later his own visit to India and spent 1 year as a Fulbright scholar in 2004 and 5. All of this culminated in the creation of this university. And I am particularly grateful to Peter for his leadership, his vision, and indeed his support. I would like to acknowledge the contributions of a number of people who were helping us in the process of establishing this institution. Dr. Francis Julian, who is the Chief Legal Advisor of the university, continues to inspire us. Professor Jane Shukovsky, who sits in our governing body, who is now back a professor at the University of Baltimore, she is also a very strong supporter and helped us in the formative phase of institution building as she just stepped down from being the director of the United States Education Foundation of India. I would also like to acknowledge the contribution of Dr. Sanjeev Sani, who now heads the Jindal Education, but also has set up a psychology lab, and I'm very pleased to report that he's also teaching a course on criminal psychology, which I understand is a very popular course for our law students, and where we do a lot of interdisciplinary research and scholarship. There are a number of things that I can go on, but I would like to once again acknowledge that this university is built through a vision to promote global education through global courses, global curriculum, global faculty, global research, and global interaction. All this was possible because a number of people have contributed to this vision, shared this vision, and are continuing to help us and inspire us in creating and developing this institution. I would like to warmly welcome a number of speakers who have come from all over the world, including speakers from India. I would like to particularly acknowledge Mr. M. Ravi, the editor of one of India's leading newspapers, The Hindu. I would like to acknowledge the presence of the CBI director, Mr. Ashwini Kumar, and also Professor M.P. Singh, who's a Vice Chancellor of the National University of Juridical Sciences. We have Professor Madhav Menon and many dignitaries as well as experts and scholars and thinkers who will be spending the next 2 days on campus as well as in Delhi to debate and discuss about one of the most important issues that is confronting the world and India, which is globalization. The creation of this institution and the programs and the curriculum and the faculty and the research, all of that is undertaken here, is integrally connected to the issue that we are discussing today. With that, I would like to welcome all of you and indeed thank you for your support. And I would like to now call upon Professor Peter Schuck, Simeon Baldwin Professor Emeritus of Law at Yale Law School, to introduce the theme of the conference and indeed give his introductory remarks.